Good afternoon, everyone. It feels inappropriate to be interrupting great lunch conversations, but we do have a very exciting afternoon ahead of us, so I'm going to get us started. Welcome back. I'm Zahra Ebrahim. I am the co-founder of Monumental, and I am an urbanist in residence at the University of Toronto School of Cities, and I will be your moderator for this afternoon's conversation. So let's bring everyone together. How is everyone doing? Oh my God. Let's hear a few things. A few people, can you yell out, where are you at? What's in your heart? What are you thinking about? How are you doing? What's a few words? Let's popcorn it around the room. What's that? Community. Anyone else? How are you feeling? How are you doing? Informed. All right, let's do one more. Hopeful. Oh my God, we're talking about democracy and we're hopeful. This is amazing. Well, it is such an honor to be here and be the moderator for your keynote this afternoon. I am the biggest fan of your keynote speaker. I had the pleasure of having a conversation with Ian at the Toronto Public Library about his 2024 Massey lecture, What I Mean to Say, last year. And in the time since, I keep coming back to his work as so formative as an underpinning of what we need in democracy right now, which is a good conversation. So this morning, we've had lots of great conversations about how the institutions can respond in more human ways. We've talked a lot about how all of us working at the level of policy and sort of movement-based change can actually move the needle and start to see more impact. But why I'm so excited for Ian to be here is that we often forget about that very granular unit of change, which is how do we have a good conversation? Not a debate, as Ian says, not an interview, not an interrogation, but a good dialogue that is underpinned by care for each other. So, this entire summit has been about moving away from divide towards dialogue. And I will say, the federal government is talking a lot about upskilling and what we're going to need for an active workforce. And I truly do think that the most necessary upskilling we need to do is learn how to talk to each other again. So, as you may have noticed, no one's bio got read this morning, but I am breaking the rules because Ian's amazing. And I'm not going to read his bio, but just in case you don't know Ian, outside of the fact that he's a very, very well-respected and esteemed professor at the University of Toronto, he's also the author of 8 books, including his most recent, which has, been longlisted for so many different prizes. And if you haven't read his 2024 Massey lecture, What I Mean to Say, it is all about what we're going to talk about today, which is rehabilitating conversation in this fraught moment that we're in. So without further ado, I'm so excited to welcome Ian to the stage. And let me just tell you one more thing before he comes up, which is because it's Ian, we are not going to have a traditional keynote speech this afternoon, so you're in for a treat. He is going to be in dialogue with me, with all of you, and with the screen. So I'll pass it over to Ian. Welcome.
Thank you, Zahra. Thank you, Zahra. And you can hear me, the mics are on. I'm looking forward to this. This is a little bit of a reprise. I never do the same thing twice, so it'll be a little bit different from our 20-hour conversation last year. This has been really wonderful so far. I could barely go to the bathroom because I don't want to miss anything. I want to hear everybody has such a good point to make. And it feels to me like the conversations I've been having from last night to tonight is at this intersection of people who are really smart and really principled. And that Venn diagram you don't always see, in universities. You got one or the other, but to see that really here, I feel hopeful, like someone shouted out there. I'm not going to reprise too much from the Massey lectures today. I'm more interested in kind of showing you an evolution of my thinking since 2024. So what follows is that kind of evolution and some observations that I've made in the last while. Unfortunately, those Massey lectures turned out to be kind of prophetic about the decline. We saw what's happening presently. And hopefully this kind of awareness and insight now can take us forward a little bit. So I've changed my mind a few times on what we'll be talking about today. So for me, the scenario that best reflects our political time is not so much historical, although we can learn a lot from 1930s Europe, but it's something a lot closer to home. High school. High school is the cauldron of social formation. It's where we test and assert our unique identities. It's where power flexes and ripples through the hallways, from the jock to the nerd, from the hot girl to the loser. In international and national politics, in our online self-presentations, as a society, we've all gone back to high school. The big political slogan of the last decade, "Make America Great Again," is retrospective, pointing back centuries to a time before many of us existed, a vague, romanticized time. And it's effective because it elicits in us a desire for a better time. It forces a confession that our best days may be behind us. If we're being earnest, I think the heart of the slogan is, "Make me great again." It is a slogan that appeals most to the once popular kids who are presently in their decline, looking back to their peaks of beauty and influence in high school. Remember your high school experience? Let's go back to puberty so we can extract some parallels here. You remember the mystery of bodies, the regulation and the rights of them in high school? Do you remember our attractions like a new form of hunger? Do you remember dealing with tense and awkward social situations, with once loyal friends from grade 1 who abandoned you in grade 9? The 1% of popular girls and bros, the middle class who dream of someday becoming the popular class, the teams, the clubs, the theater kids, the curriculum determining hours of your day, the sitting, the smoking, the checked out, burnt out teachers, the one teacher who's your secret role model, the jokers, the raw emotions, the thunderstorm of hormones from every direction daily. Do you remember the cruelty and ultimately the rebellions, all the while staring endlessly into a mirror? What is more accurate for this time than high school? Fortunately, high school is only a 4-year term. Then you get to choose what happens to you. You can move out and on to university. You can eat what you want, sleep when you want, study when you want, hang out with who you want, or you can opt out altogether. And truly things get better after those 4 years. If you were like me, the braces come off and the contacts go in, and you feel free. It's only worse for the popular kids who squandered those years, believing that the entire world was theirs, who find themselves afterward without deep friendships, sometimes addicted. They live in the curse of protracted youth. They never really progress or mature beyond high school. Their minds never transcend those of teenagers. It's sad to peak in high school. For the star athlete, the body fails within a decade. The prettiest girl becomes ordinary. The smartest kid gets a desk job that crushes his soul. Imagine your life frozen at 17. We're living it. Do you?
You know what came to mind, Ian, as you were talking, just on maybe in the last week, my co-founder, Kofi, who you heard from earlier, we were talking about Ezra Klein's new book, which I'm sure some people in this room have heard of, Abundance, and how it talks about how, like, people on the left, people on the right, broadly defined, share one thing. We're all obsessed with the past, right? So if you're on the right, it's about things being great again. If you're on the left, it's about injustices that were never resolved, and we cannot move forward until we have that conversation. And so as you were speaking, I was thinking, my mind was going back to that conversation saying, we are suspended. Oh, thank you. Is there, everyone in this room was spiritually in that chair. But my mind immediately started going there and being like, but we grip onto these moments where we did something right.
Yeah.
At all parts of our life. Yeah. I don't think it stops in high school. So that's my yes and to you, which is I think in politics, in professional life, in all of these different spaces, when we do something right, we codify it, we calcify it, and then we protect it.
Yeah,
we defend it.
This is where evidence lies, right? We're always looking to the past to affirm who we say we are, right? To sort of have a kind of harmony between the person we project ourselves and the person that we claim to be. And the past is where all that evidence is. The problem is when the past gets co-opted and manipulated and all of that, right? So your version of the past, how you remember high school, is not how I remember high school. If you are the bully in high school versus if you're the bully, two different experiences all at the same time, right? Yeah.
It just also makes me think, I don't know if there's any Radiolab fans in the crowd. Like 4? Okay, so I will tell you about this one episode that is lodged in my mind. So it was a podcast in the early days of podcasts, and there was an episode that opened with, your favorite story is a lie. Because every single time, neuroscientists have sort of looked into this and they've said that every time we retell our favorite story, we fabricate it just a little bit. And so my partner and I always laugh about the story of our meeting is like a total falsehood because we've told it so many times. And I think there's a truth in that, which is we start to abstract the details we can't remember. And in the absence of those details, we add color that compels people, that makes it a good story. Because at the time, we didn't know it was a good story. It was our lives. It was banal. Right. But over time, it changes. And these falsehoods become our realities. They become our defining stories. Yeah,
and it's self-serving. And even with the evidence, the hard sort of irrefutable evidence of something video recorded, right? Yes. Like that car, was it a weapon or was it not a weapon? Still, our retellings of things that we can all see remain, subject to change, right, and subject to interpretation. So it's almost like no amount of objective reality can thwart this idea that we need to tell it in our own way until, we or other people believe it, right? Yeah.
This morning I was listening to Michael Pollan talk about his new book on consciousness. And he said lots of exceptionally profound things, but he talked about how we are awful students of our own mind. So he's talking about this experiment that a researcher he worked with on the book was running, and it was sort of a little bit like Be Real. Do you remember Be Real? It had a thing, a moment 3 years ago. Oh. It was a social media app that basically said, at irregular points in the day, we're going to send you a notification, and you take a picture of what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
Right? Versus curating your feed, versus telling a story, versus manufacturing your life. Yeah. And so this neuroscientist he was working with on the book said that, basically he ran this experiment that said every time a person gets this beep, they have to document what they're thinking about. And of course it has the observer effect. When you're going to get a beep, you might you're like,
clean up your thoughts,
think about Thoreau, think about something profound.
Right.
But he said when he participated in the experiment, he found that his inner world was not as rich as he thought it was. He found that he was thinking, do I have a heel of bread or a loaf of bread in my fridge? And so I also think we fabricate the richness of our opinions. Yeah. We think we ruminate on them all the time, but the evidence shows even someone like him who's thinking about thinking all the time.
Yeah.
When those beeps showed up on his phone, he was thinking about the most innocuous, banal thing, yet he perceives himself as someone who has rich and ethical and rigorous inner world and inner dialogue about the things he cares about.
Yeah, it came up a few times this morning, right? What level are we really living on, right? On what level is our reality constructed? And the federal gets a lot of attention, and the international more and more. but most of us are living on the local level, right? We're living on the heel of bread level.
Yes.
And the people that we're talking to who really sway our opinions are the people in the household, or the people like at the office next to yours, right? And not so much the people from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the whole, do we talk about monetary policy or do we talk about eggs costing too much?
That's right.
Right?
That's right. I don't have the time, but Zahra, you're going to...
I have the time for sure. Someone's going to tell me the time.
All right. Meet CJ. So CJ on the left here is in grade 11. That's him in grade 12. And he's given me his permission to use examples from his life for the next segment here. CJ is quite proud of the lies that he tells, okay? It's unfortunate. And he's told just about every kind of lie conceivable. So I'd like to go through a list here, and for our own good, so that we can recognize the types of lies that we're being fed incessantly. So there are 12 types. I've sorted them into 3 categories here. Lies of commission, lies of omission, and partial lies. And under commission, we've got your outright fabrication. You can have every kind of lie that you want here. This is your basic lie. This is your bold lie. So CJ's example, he told his parents that he was going to his friend Brian's house, but he was really going to meet a girl instead. All right, that's grade 12. Gaslighting. When he got caught, he said he never said he was going to Brian's house specifically, causing his parents to doubt their memory. Delusion. That's a lie to yourself where you choose a falsehood over reality. It's what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So in grade 11, CJ told himself that he would look more buff if he wore baggy clothes. 4, adopted lies. These are stereotypes and cliches that are lazily accepted because somebody told you. And they're popular. And these lies are warped oversimplifications that are repeated over years and sometimes over centuries. So this one is a bit thick. So CJ's parents told him not to hang out with a couple of kids because they'd hold him back. The kids were black. And the parents weren't using those words, but he knew what they meant. And I have his permission, okay, to share this with you. That's a kind of accepted lie that kind of gets coded and moved around and circulating. Social lie. This is a lie that binds a group together and avoids individual responsibility. So CJ's church group passes out sandwiches to unhoused people on Christmas. CJ, quote, "This pretty much makes them feel like we're good people for the whole year." 6-1, playing the victim. This is claiming to be misunderstood or that you're misinterpreted, or the favorite is there was a failure of communication, right? And this allows for plausible deniability in the future. So when CJ called his parents out on their racism with 2 of his black friends, his parents said that's not what they meant. They were talking about the academic performance of one of those kids. And when he brought up that one of his close white friends was failing physics, they said he was getting things all twisted up and that physics was hard. Omission. So I'll omit examples of this one here, haha. So exclusion, that's attempting to mislead by leaving out important details. Ignoring, that's when you know the truth, but you pretend that you don't, or you refuse to investigate it thoroughly to preserve your own self-interest. I think for this one too, this false ignorance, it's also minimizing someone else's experience and pretending that minimizing their feelings and their hurt or their past. And finally here we have deflection, which is avoiding the truth by changing the subject or shifting attention from yourself. This is my bread and butter lie here, deflection. Every time I'm in a tough spot, I go for deflection, right? So know your lying profile as well. It's partly about recognizing it, but also know your defense mechanisms that you activate when things get rough for you. Partial. So white lies. This is a small lie to avoid trouble or hurting someone's feelings. Here, CJ. Then we have living lies. These are nonverbal. They're about giving a false impression, pretending to be someone you're not. So you pretend to be richer than you are or more caring than you are. And it may be an exaggeration of what you feel. CJ? And finally, we have misinterpretation. We touched on this a bit. This is bending the truth in your favor. And here's CJ on that one. So we have there 12 kinds of lies in 3 categories. But I'd suggest that CJ himself is a lie of the worst kind. He's an AI-generated image from a prompt I gave. He's a fiction. And so for me, the worst kind of lie is deception. For me to have your trust and then to manipulate it and to betray you in order to make a point. So this is happening all around us. We're in the thick of deception, and no confession or apology is coming. And if it does, it'll be the thing that happens centuries too late when the damage has been done. So how to recognize a lie? Know what you're looking for. So you won't know all forms of something that's counterfeit, but if you're well acquainted with the real, then you can detect the fake bill, the fake passport. Be vigilant. That is, keep on the alert. And I say this with a caveat because we don't want to live in a state of constant suspicion, but we need to be vigilant in these times. And third, this is training your gut by noting your feelings and then matching the evidence afterwards. Was my gut right or wrong in that case? And where did it go off? And how can I fine-tune it for the future? So how to deal with a lie? I mean, ultimately, truth is the antidote to deception. And you can try to dismantle lies in a false system, and by all means, this is important. You can use a whole bunch of rhetorical tools going back to the ancient Greeks to expose flaws of logic, argument, and fact. Or you can simply propose the truth, test it, refine it, and to stick to its offensive simplicity. Little side note here about Meta took a big bet, right, when they went from being Facebook to Meta, that most of us wanted to live in the metaverse. And I think Zuckerberg recently admitted, like, okay, that didn't work out. He still made billions. He's still doing okay, right? Don't feel sorry for him. Our options to responding to lies is we can live in a lie, we can continue to live in it, we can perpetuate it. But I really believe the failure of Meta in that aspect is evidence that most of us actually want to live in the real world with fact and truth. So we do the hard work instead of recovering from our experiences with deception, sharpening our detectors so we won't be deceived again. What do you think?
Just writing down sharpening our detectors because I want to come back to that. You know, you had this amazing turn of phrase, you know, the antidote to you know, deception or managing, you know, how much we get consumed by lies is about staying well acquainted with the real.
Yeah.
We've talked about that all morning.
Yeah.
I think and we end up in sort of homophily, right? We are drawn to sameness.
That's a beautiful word.
Human behavior. It's a lovely word.
The English prof in me here. That's a beautiful word. I'm going to use that later.
Homophily, and it's a bias, right?
Yeah.
It's that we're drawn to people who have the same lived experience, points of view, way of being in the world. And so staying well acquainted with our real means, for a lot of us, staying close to sameness. So my question for you is, how do we ground ourselves in real, while also, and I don't know where Victoria is in the crowd, but she talked about self-regulation.
Yeah.
And you talked about that in your book, where you talk about we have to learn how, and you talk about a conversation you had that was difficult in moments for you, and how it's really important for us to learn how to take care of ourselves so that we can stay in a conversation. So it's my long-winded way of getting to the question, how do we expand the aperture of what our real is? Because the problem right now is our real is defining our whole way of being and our whole way of defending the things that we're trying to protect.
Yeah.
And so how do we engage with difference
that's a
and
big
still
question.
Take care of ourselves?
That's a big question. That's you're on the territory of philosophy now. What is real, right? What is real? And I think part of the issue that's happened recently is that the real has shifted from something that is external and observable, and that must be confronted. It's like, if I walk in this direction, I will hit this podium and hurt myself, right? That used to be the real. And what's happened, I think, in our lifetimes is that the real is now something that is constructed, right? What you're saying about sort of choosing your peer group and choosing your group. So now we can construct an environment that is comfortable and familiar and safe and pleasant and all of that. And it has the illusion of real because the materials are the same. I'm still dealing with people, I'm still dealing with objects, but my configuration of those materials now means that I'm creating a false reality that mimics the real, right? But I can live in that place without too much mental adjustment. Hopefully this makes sense, right? We're doing it all the time, the sort of manufacturing of our identities and putting it forward and sort of constructing our identities. And we're doing it, it started off with I'm gonna present my vacation and my life on Facebook as really interesting. And it's now morphed into, it's not enough to control my own social presentation. I'm controlling the entire environment around. These are the people in my circle. These are the people, the voices that I want to hear. It's spread from self-presentation to social construction as well. Yeah.
So how do we sharpen our detectors?
Yeah. I don't know. No, I think we sharpen them by having these really sort of unpleasant brush-ups with reality. And it requires, I think it was the last panel before lunch, it requires, or 2 panels ago, the kind of introspective work that you refuse to let yourself off the hook. When you are wrong, you say, I messed up on that. I thought that person could be trusted and they couldn't be trusted. I thought, I have a friend right now, right? I thought that person liked me, but they don't, or they didn't. And the people that I believe are showing me affection, in fact, are showing me I'm misapprehending something there, right, when I'm reading for love. And I think maybe we do this in the personal all the time, right? Yeah. Here's the person who hurt me, and I don't want to make that mistake again. And now we have to do it in all areas of our lives, right? The professional, the personal, all the way up, right, to the political. So.
It's, I was looking at what Zane said this morning, just around, talking about we're looking for a home for our grievances.
Yeah.
And I do think that when we get into conversations with people who are different, there is a tendency to then use it as an exercise to just air our grievances without actually listening to each other. And I think, what you're talking about is being able to self-regulate and check ourselves, slow down our cognition and say, wait, hold on. Yeah. Ian's trying to talk. Just listen.
Right.
And I'll just say, controversial, I think that we're then expecting everybody to call to their highest self in the worst moments where we're feeling oppressed, we are feeling under-resourced. And I just don't think it's practical for all of us to, in the worst of times when we're fighting for something that is very likely seems like a movement, but probably an injustice that we experience directly, but we're making it seem like it's part of a movement, but we're just trying to right a wrong that happened to us. I think it's, dare I say, unreasonable for us to expect people to channel their highest selves in the moments of most, they're experiencing the most, they're experiencing their barrier most acutely.
Yeah. That's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, we expect this kind of perfection of and consistency of character all the time, on one hand, and this kind of nobility all the time. And when the other side fails at that, we're quick to point out and say, like, you are not what you claim to be and all of those things. But it is unreasonable. But my hope is that if there's something more fundamental, like respect or a relationship that precedes our conversation, then I can say that, no, this is not Zahra at her best, right? This is her responding to stress. And I'm not going to overweigh or count this conversation as emblematic of the person she is. I know this is a moment, and the conversation can sort of continue at a different point. But that requires like a history of relationship, and it requires a little bit of grace and the benefit of the doubt. And it is reciprocal too, right? If I extend this to you, then I expect that you will know that now I'm speaking from a position of duress or stress, and sometimes from a position of ignorance. And I think that's what's become sort of like unforgivable now. This person thinks they know best right now, but they're entering this discussion, and the conversation necessarily has to be coarse and crude at this point in our dialogue, and eventually it will become refined and more nuanced. Right?
You know, you're making me think of something, you know, in your book, and I know we're evolving it, but I come back to this example often, where you talk about how you're in a conversation. I think it was post-COVID, and you're just kind of like, maybe it was at the Calgary airport, with the lady playing the piano.
Yeah. It was at the BAM Center, actually, but yeah.
Yeah, you were in Alberta.
Yeah.
And you're having this great conversation at an airport, and you're like, life is good, we're out in the world, and the conversation is going really well. And then she says something about God. She's telling you a story, and in the story she had said to someone, God loves you. And you sort of start to dysregulate and stay in the conversation. And I think that is the level at which we all need practice right now. But it's not just the people in this room. The people in this room have elected to be in Calgary for 3 days to talk about democracy. And so I think my question for you is like, you know, and feel free to elaborate on that story too. I've probably butchered it. That's the lie in my head about the story. There you go. Radio Lab was right. But like, how do we support the people that we're in community with? Like, how do we do that? Like, what are the tools we can use?
Right. I think I like that story because it identifies like a trigger point for me. Like, there's something sensitive in all of us. Like, we don't want destroyed or breached or mishandled or treated too casually. And there's a point where I will shut down because I'm not going there. It's just too important to me, right? To have batted around. And we feel that this way about like people too, right? Like some people don't take pictures of their kids and post them because they are not material for an algorithm, right? You will not use my kids to profit. So it starts for me with recognizing what those sensitivities are. And I need to sort of figure out, those sensitivities are so close to me that I have not needed to talk about them, right? I've just sort of absorbed them and sort of built parts of my identity around believing them or rejecting them. And so when it comes up in the world, I'm on the defensive here, right? Because it feels like a lot more personal than necessarily. She just wanted to talk about, you know, her God that was, you know, good to her and good to, and all of that, fine and good. But for me, I'm going like, this is political, and this is that, and this is that, and this is that, and sort of like overplaying it. And so I will say, like, this is my issue and not her issue. And I think a lot of the time when we're in conflict and we see perceived polarization, it's not the other team's issue, right? It's actually like our defense is weak here, and our offensive needs to be strengthened over there, and we need a new pitcher. Like, there are things we need to do on our side to fix that problem, rather than saying that other team, right, just can't deal, just don't want to play them.
You know, there's something here, there's a paradox that we're holding, right? There's talking and there's listening, right? And we have to kind of get good at everything. So good luck to all of us in that. But I do think that, you know, in what you're saying, my mind immediately went to a conversation we were having in the lunch line. And it's a story I often go back to in my mind. We were working in sort of the east side of Toronto, St. Jamestown, historically sort of vertical community, sort of one of the largest sort of planned vertical communities in the country, you know, historically low income and presently as well. And, you know, we were doing some work around sort of how to engage more equitably for the city. And we heard this story about a parks person that had gone into the community and was like, there is such little social infrastructure in this neighborhood. We're going to put a multi-acre park in the neighborhood. And she's like, I don't know what went wrong, but like people didn't want to have the conversation. We were like, well, what were people saying? And the people were saying, well, you live in that apartment building over there that we think is one of the sort of community housing, Toronto community housing. And they were like, there's a dumpster outside the front door. And it's been there for years. And we show up to every meeting to say, move the dumpster. And so you come in here and you apparently have the ability to wave your magic wand and build a park. But you can't move, insert profanity, all the things dumpster. How am I supposed to trust you? And I think what was so interesting, and this goes back to some of what Kofi was saying about our work earlier, but I think this is the essence of it too, is that it's about conversation, but part of conversation is listening, right? And so one of the conversations Kofi and I had with that person, you know, this parks person, was I think she was actually really engaged. I don't think she was disengaged from the parks conversation. But it was also, it's a practice for bureaucrats, politicians, whoever they are, to stay in the conversation and go, what are we actually talking about here? And it's a trust in government.
That's right.
Right? Is what she was saying, move the dumpster and then we'll talk parks.
I think that needs to be the title of a book, right? Move the dumpster.
Move the dumpster.
And the staged kind of listening that goes nowhere, right? The false listening. All right, last stretch. So this is how to think about anti-democratic systems and their effect on us. So authoritarianism is really the concentration of power in the hands of a few people. And visibly the elites are, you know, political or military or corporate or technological folks, and media entities sometimes, all of whom stand to benefit somehow from it. I'm hesitating here because I feel already that word authoritarianism is going to end up or go the way of freedom and woke and perhaps even democracy, which is it will be emptied out of meaning and just kind of tossed around. So I want us to think about it. What is the concept here that we're dealing with, regardless of how the words change? And really, it's anti-democratic activity, right? So whatever your political leaning, here are 4 effects, I think, of a world ruled by anti-democratic impulses. The first one concerns choice. So authoritarian states reduce our choices. It's really a reduction of choice and control over our lives. In other words, the important decisions are made for us while we squabble over the trivial ones. Choice and free will are at the foundation of what it means to be human. You want to dehumanize someone or a group of people, you remove their choice, you remove their free will. And we know that my self-determination exists in conflict with your own interests. We've heard about that a little bit this morning. But I just want to also suggest that internally we are not consistent. So we're always in negotiation with our own desires. We want candy and we want good health. We want more time and we want to spend 5 hours on our screen, which is the average. Second thing that anti-democratic systems do to us on a personal human level is it breeds distrust. We find it hard to trust generally. Authoritarianism makes us cagey and suspicious. It assaults the institutions that have protected us. It wants us to believe that everything is corrupt except itself. Don't trust universities, the newspapers, the scientists, the doctors. Don't trust history records. That's not how it happened. Don't believe women or any oppressed group. They're exaggerating. Don't believe anything you hear. And more in our age of AI-generated videos and deep fakes, don't believe anything you see. As a result of this assault on institutions, the institutions themselves get hollowed out and replaced. It's like the glass remains. You had a glass of water, and I've poured out the water, and the container remains. An authoritarian fills it with vinegar and claims that worse, that, hey, here's water still. The third effect is that it creates in us a kind of smallness. It shrinks us. It stifles, it silences, it numbs. Have you used these verbs to sort of describe your state post-COVID? Numbs, kind of eats away at us. It's an uncreative time. Flooding the zone is a strategy to wear down the thinking person. I think evil is ultimately uncreative in its accusations. This is why an authoritarian movement accuses its enemies of doing the very same thing that it's doing. Fraud, violence, radicalism. Authoritarianism strips you down to a data point and encourages you to do the same to others. It's the us versus them, the friend versus enemy. It promises to order a messy world, often after creating the mess, by oversimplifying people and problems. Then it acts decisively to make problems go away. Speed and force are the point. It relies on the swift and absolute use of power, so that no question can be asked in advance or useful reflection in its aftermath. It begins with these slogans. It begins with, "It is what it is." And it ends with, "What's done is done." The fourth thing is this feeling of powerlessness. It needs as a precondition to its rise a kind of atomization, which is, we've seen these movements from like family TVs to individuals' TVs in like bedrooms and then into your own screens. This kind of extreme personalization, which is sold to us as something desirable. And all these conveniences that appeal to an increasingly selfish nature, a Western value gone amok. After separating individuals so that we are literally no longer looking at the same thing, it can then propose a new collective. It's like dismantling the house that you built out of Lego and reassembling the blocks into a prison. So I'm going to race to the end here. So we started by talking about high school. And you know this poem. It's a very well-known poem about everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. Not going to read it. You can hit the highlights here. It's simple and it's elegant. It makes the point. But here's what I encourage us to do in just a couple of minutes. Just 3 buckets again, and pretty much like 12 antidotes to these kinds of lies that we're seeing all the time. And the first is this thinking piece, right? The sort of assault on universities and institutions that encourage reflective thinking is no accident. So I like the way the French think about it, réfléchir, which is to reflect. Before you take a big decision, I need to reflect on the purchase of that house, or I reflected on our conversation and I've thought about this and that. And it's not, I've stopped saying like thinking a lot, and I say like I need to reflect on that a bit, right, and get back to you. Still in the thinking realm, to reclaim your time. And this means to reclaim yourself from the online version, from those 5 hours a day. to exert your power over your 24 hours, to reclaim your money. And we see this in really sort of acute moments of like global turmoil. We'll see boycotts, or we're going to sort of avoid this. But think about it again, like more simply. What's a place where you want to spend less? And that's less of your money and less of your time. It could be a streaming service, it could be a gas station, it could be whatever your values are. Where do you want to spend less? And where do you want to spend more? Second thing, talk. This is the keep talking bit. Don't avoid difficult truths, practice restraint. Someone mentioned it in the panel before. Respect the person that you're talking to as a fundamental precondition, even if you disagree with them. This is insisting on their humanity. This one is personally important to me. Clarity. This is insist on clear language. Do not hide behind jargon, legalese, false diplomacy, corporate or bureaucratic language, or pseudo-intellectual posturing. Speak clearly. Let your words still have meaning. And under talk still, I think we need new friendships. We need to talk to people that we don't think we're going to like. I took the bus from the airport to the hotel because it was $4, and you know, no matter how much money you have, you still have like, I could save that money. And this person comes on the bus driver waves him on and says, just come on, you're holding us up. And so he comes on, he doesn't pay. He sits next to me, and he's looking very nervous. And he says, like, how much is bus fare? And he goes up to the front. I tell him it's $4. He goes up to the front, and he puts his last 2 toonies in there. And he comes back and he says, okay, that's all the money I have. And I say to him, so what are you going to eat for lunch now, right? What are you going to do? And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm going to be okay. And we start talking. This kid is in his 20s. He's traveled from Myanmar, Burma, through Hong Kong to get to Canada. And he looks so ordinary with his toonie here, but the journey of his being in this country, sitting next to me on the bus, would have gone completely unexcavated if I didn't think that making a friend was a priority. It turns out he learned English from the usual way, watching American movies and all of that, and also from talking to his cat, because he had nobody else to talk to. And the wallpaper on his phone is a picture of his black cat looking up at him. But I think we need new friendships with people that we think are insignificant and with people that we think we disagree with. Finally, act. This is protect, support, defend institutions that uphold democracy. As you advance your idea, protect the rights of others to disagree and to live differently. Support journalism. I got a real earful from someone from the Globe and Mail, and he said, you don't subscribe? I was like, well, he's like, you need to subscribe to something. And so it's cheap. Even if you don't read the newspaper regularly, subscribe. Subscribe to, pick one and subscribe to it, right? And my goal now is you subscribe to something that's a traditional kind of media outlet, and then find something new that you actually want to support. Some grassroots kind of journalistic endeavor. Participation, this is the voting. Participate in real world communities, whether that's as simple as like Canada Reads or running in a charity race. Let your inner beliefs have some external reality. You can volunteer, whatever it is. And so think about what community you would like to join after this, right? Being in this room is great because we're surrounded by people who sort of think by us. But what community am I going to be really courageous and join? All right, that's it for like this part here. And so now we can talk.
Well, and I think we are coming to a close if I look at my friend up here in the front row. But maybe what I'll say just to wrap up this last section, which I think was a very important place to close. My mind went to a conversation I had 2 weeks ago. I think there are some folks here from the territories. I was in Watson Lake, Yukon Territory 2 weeks ago, which is an incredible place, and I had a chance to spend a lot of time in the territory. And I got to listen to a talk that was right after mine that was from the Yukon First Nations Wildfire Authority. And the person who got up there was so smart, had read resilience strategies from all over the country. And what he said to the crowd, which was the association that represents all the mayors and the councillors and chiefs up in the Yukon Territory, and they gather to talk about sort of challenges they're collectively facing. He said, look, I've read a lot of resilience strategies, but the one thing mayors, councillors, communities take back to your community if we face wildfires and floods and rolling blackouts, every single person in your community needs to have the phone number of 3 neighbors. They need to know their average house temperature. That is our resilience strategy for this territory. So the reason I bring it up, the reason my mind went there when you were speaking, was we know what to do. Yeah. We know what to do. The technology of democracy starts at the level of conversation, at the level of our neighborhood. And I think, you know, we were talking about this on the plane, the moral consistency of coming into rooms like this and having big conversations, but then going back even to the places where we live and not building the social infrastructure there. You know, there's something to be interrogated further there. And so I think you really brought us to a great place at the end of this talk, which is, you know, we don't need new technology. We already have it. We learned it in kindergarten. This is very basic stuff. And you know, that sort of Kant phrase, treat people as ends, not means, right, is sort of the message that I'm taking away, which is, you know, we have the skills and we have to be more relational and less transactional.
Yeah. Thank you, Zahra. I think that's beautiful. Get the numbers of 3 of your neighbors and know their home temperature, or know something intimate about 3 of your neighbors. Yeah, I think that's where it starts. Yeah.
So with that, friends, we could talk all afternoon, but I'm going to ask you to say a big thank you to Ian Williams.
Thank you. Thank you, Zahra.
And we'll pass it back to our MC.